ahead and get started. Did you have any questions before we started?
Nope.
All right, well then we can just go ahead and hop into it. Same as last time, I'll just be a minute or so while I'm looking for something to talk about.
Sounds good.
My teleporter is online.
Target in sight.
Okay, so, oh snap! Why is it on 20 seconds? I thought I just set it to 5. My bad. All right, there we go. Whoops. So here, first off, so I think we some teammates go through it, we don't. Baptiste goes through it. This might be a good opportunity to maybe go for a bubble on him, and then that can just be a early bubble. Instead, we don't, and then that means that we get the bubble on him, which is fine, and we save him his life. But it's just 4-ish seconds, 3-ish seconds after we could have had it on him, which could mean we can get a whole other cycle of bubbles in sooner. So maybe just using bubble a bit earlier there would have been a good idea. We also back off with our bubble very early here, so we notice how we bubble with him, and then we push forwards and we bubble, which is fine, except we just back out pretty much instantaneously. So notice how like we still bubble, and then we start backing with the bubble, right? And then how are they going to shoot at it for that last 3/4 of the bubble? So when we have our bubble, make sure we're getting more aggressive. We're staying in place. We're not backing up, unless of course we're like very low HP and we're in danger. But there we wanted the energy, so we want to stay in there so they can actually shoot at our bubble, and that also provides tanking as well.
Yeah.
The objective is now.
Get in there. Barrier activated.
Okay, so again, here with our own personal bubble, our projected bubble is fine. Personal bubble, let's see how we use it. So first off, we walk in when we have 5 people looking at us, and I would just bubble immediately here, because we see, you bubble when you know damage is coming in, and you bubble when you see people are looking at you and shooting at you. When you have 4 people looking at you, and also you know that they have turrets set up, and you're pushing forwards where you're out in the open, this can be assumed that we're going to be taking damage very, very soon here, and we do, in fact. Mei shoots an icicle at us, and we take a bunch of other damage, but we just pop it a little bit late after we push forwards. Now, after we do pop it, notice how, again, we back up with it instantaneously. We back up, instead of pushing forwards or standing still, we back up, and then Reinhardt walks in front of us, and then basically our bubble doesn't really do very much there, where we don't get a lot of energy out of it. So, so far, bubble usages has not seemed has seemed inconsistent at best, so we'll keep an eye on it. Good tracking. All right, so we had some good tracking there at the end, so that worked out, and we did get high energy. Make sure that in between fights we're trying to maintain bubble energy. So right now we're just talking about a lot of different bubbles. Why are bubbles important? Bubbles are insanely important on Zarya, as when you don't have good bubbles, first off, you're not providing any tanking. Secondly, you're not getting energy. When you lack energy, you do very little damage. When you have more damage, that means that you get more ult charge. That means you're getting more kills, and when you get more ults, you get more kills as well. More kills leads to more fight wins. More fight wins leads to more game wins. All of that to say that bubbles wins you games if you're landing them correctly, and they can win you fights. So we want to make sure we're landing good bubbles, and at the moment they're seeming inconsistent with how often we're landing good ones, and also just keeping our energy levels up. Now, how we can keep our energy levels up here is in between fights, make sure we're looking to maintain our energy. So something very easy we can do here is, instead of sitting on point in between the fight, is we could be putting ourselves up more sort of like right here, right? It's not super dangerous, right? Like, all we have to do to get back to our team is just back up a little bit. I think we're maybe expecting them to do like a TP to point or something like that, but if we see them going for it, maybe we can just back up, because from here we should be able to see if they're teleporting, right? But from here, this puts us in a lot better of a situation to actually bait them to shoot at us, right? We can get them to shoot at us, and then therefore we can bubble and keep our energy up through in between the fights. Whereas if we don't do anything and we just sit back, then our energy is going to decay, and we're going to go from, we go from the very end of the fight at like 78 energy, right? And then we just decay by the time the next fight begins. If we're not doing anything to maintain it, we're just gonna be down to 30, right? Whereas here we don't do anything at all, and then now we're at the 30, and then we're probably gonna be like 25, and then 27, right? Yeah.
Ready
So
for
by the
battle.
time next time we use our bubble is we've decayed from 79 to 25, right? So we want to make sure we're just
Yeah.
maintaining our bubble energy and keeping it up.
Stop Tonko.
Okay, let's rewatch a little bit of that.
Ready for battle.
So we do bubble, they just stop shooting at us. That's unfortunate. Then we do gotta watch out, make sure that we're paying attention to where our team's at. And here we're just a little bit ahead of our team, and we're out in the open, so they just kind of run at us here. So we just want to be careful. What number are we? We are in 7, right?
7.
Tonko.
Adjusting angle of attack.
Barrier zone.
I try to bubble the Ryan there.
Let's see what. I'm just trying to see. Is she just walk in front of it? Yeah, she just pretty much walks in front of the bubble there. It's unfortunate.
Barrier zone.
Alright, and then that shatters. Not super on us there. Alright.
Bring it. Don't be shy.
Okay, nice early bubble.
Get in there. Barrier activated.
Okay, so
Get in
first,
there.
so this is a little bit chaotic when we're pushing in here. So let's take a look at it as we're going. So first off, good bubble on the Reinhardt as he's pushing in aggressively. But we also
Get
seem
in
to
there.
forget that they are on Symmetra. So just make sure that we're looking around for turrets like as soon as we're pushing in, as that's just what we want to pay attention to. Because Reinhardt's not gonna be able to kill those turrets, and that could be like our job to just handle them real quick. So just pay attention to those turrets. Now. Also, I'd probably say that our objective here is to get off like a grav. That might be our objective. So we want to make sure we're just getting damage in there so we can do so. This is just very chaotic at the moment. Yeah. So we just lose the fight before we're able to do anything there.
Perseverance is the key.
Enemy seen.
Give me your best shot. Charging up. You're covered.
By the way, you said this is from scrims, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so whoops, I didn't mean to skip that. My bad.
I'm even
So I was just trying to ask
strong-
a question, then I accidentally pressed down. So, are you on this team that you're on scrims with? Yeah.
Yeah,
Or are
I
you
just put a
trying?
team together with friends.
Okay. So
Yeah.
is this? Are you guys kind of trying to be competitive with it, or not super competitive?
Oh yeah, we do it besides last week every Tuesday for the past few weeks, probably I think this is our third one.
Okay, so just playing off of kind of like what we're talking about with team comps. Last time we talked about a bunch of team comp things. Here we're kind of running a little bit of like a pretty much everything's fine except for the issue is that we're just running a Mercy Echo with our team comp, which doesn't really pair well with what we're running because we're trying to run a brawl but with 2 spam characters who don't pair well with brawl at all. So I get we're trying to. I think that the idea behind that is we're trying to spam out the Symmetra and the Mei and get an off angle behind them, which works perfectly fine most of the time. But it would be best if our entire team comp, if we're trying to go for that playstyle, we would probably want to swap our entire team comp up to where now we're on a full spam, whereas here we're just a little bit split up. So, it's gonna be very difficult to actually win this because if we're trying to brawl with them, they win the brawl because they have 2 more brawl characters than we do. If we try to
Yeah.
spam them, then we're not a full spam comp, so we can't spam very effectively. So now we're in this weird area
Hybrid.
weird hybrid where we don't have a super effective win condition, and we kind of have to just more so just out duel them and deathmatch style them into just using getting kills better and whatnot. So we just lose a little bit of our win conditions we could have otherwise. So it's just an idea there. If you're like organizing a team, is stick with one or the other, stick with the hard brawl or stick with the spam. Try not to mix the two because they kind of in nature are they are in nature opposite to each other, so they don't really fit well together if you try to pair them.
You're covered.
动作不许走。
Resistance.
Okay.
Огонь по готовности. That's the power of attraction.
All right, so let's take a look at this. So first off, they come out with that.
Yeah, I was gonna try to like the right click jump, but I was reloading. So
Okay, so we did get a 4-man grab, though we're all very low HP there.
Bring them down.
All right, so we do get them all in the grab, so that works.
Is that all you got? Gravity kills. Barriers on.
Yeah, I'd probably say a large part of that game was just we weren't on a favorable team composition versus what they were running in comparison to them, so we just ended up getting run over most of that game.
Barriers on you.
And make sure while we're looking for bubbles that we are still shooting while we're going for them, right? That we're not just completely
Okay.
stopping everything while we're going for them. So here we should be looking for the bubbles while we're also shooting in there. Where here, notice how we're looking for them and we're kind of pausing while we're looking for it. It's just a good idea to try to be in the habit of that. Plus, we don't go... Okay, so we go for our bubble, but it's slightly late there. We just watch our health bar there, because we do take a lot... Probably just could have damaged or bubbled a little bit faster. And then what this does... Notice how, like, there's Zarya's bubbling immediately. This is probably more so what you want to be doing, as this gets our cooldown going sooner, which will lead to more bubbles during this fight, right? Like, let's say if we bubble... Let's say the fight lasts 20 seconds, right? And we have a 10-second cooldown on our bubble. I think the other one has 8 seconds, right? So roughly you get two. If you're bubbling at the very beginning of the fight, you're getting 2 bubbles in the fight, right? Now, if you bubble 5 seconds in, well, now the second bubble you're still getting it. It's just happening, right? Like a little later than it should be. If you wait 10 seconds in, well, now you're only getting 1 bubble versus 2 bubbles. So the longer we wait on it, the less value we'll get out of the bubble, and we want to get our energy up high here so we can start doing a bunch of damage. Which getting that initial damage in can mean the big difference. And then also just notice how from us not bubbling, we take 200 damage, and then we get down to, before we bubble, we get down to 108. We get down to 89 HP, all of which could have been converted into energy and negated had we just bubbled, right? So
yeah,
bubbles.
the only reason for there was just because I thought he was gonna like shield hop or shield a little bit in, and so I just figured I wouldn't get value out of it right away.
Yeah,
like the other ones where I bubbled like behind him.
In which, so if you think because your Reinhardt's in front of you, and then therefore you're not going to be, honestly, with the pure amount of the pure volume of how much damage is coming down that choke, I wouldn't assume that it's all going to be blocked by a shield, just because there's 6 people spamming down one tiny little corridor here. On both sides, you see things like fire strikes that will go through. You'll have damage that'll go through because he'll drop his shield. He's currently swinging right now, so you can see, our Reinhardt's looking to get in there and swing, not shield hop. So that's when we bubble him in and he's like right in on top of them, we should be expecting him to be swinging that shield hopping. So just a couple things there to add in.
Okay.
Good cover usage. Did we just... Oh, she's off the edge. Okay. So they're... One thing I would mention, so we're struggling to get up high energy, but once we get energy, I'm going to look more at this and then try to articulate it a bit better, but I'm noticing that we're just not really using our energy very well. Like, it seems like we're not shooting people very often. So I'll try to look for examples to show you what I'm talking about there. Bubble when it didn't do anything, so just watching for when damage is actually coming in. Here we could be using our personal bubble, though we wait on it, and then they're also sprinting at us by the time we use it. Okay, let's talk about when
Charging up.
you should be right-clicking versus left-clicking, since we see a little bit of that here. So first off, we'll just run through this a little bit slower since we see a couple tiny things here and there. So first off, notice how we reload while we are 58 ammo. You don't want to be reloading when you can still be shooting at people. Wait until you're out of ammo to reload. The only time you want to be reloading is if you have nobody to shoot at or see. In that case, you can reload, or like if you're ducking around the corner or whatnot, right? So that's one thing here is we reload unnecessarily, which can waste time where we could be shooting at people. Now also we're going to be right clicking in some instances like here right now where we are within left click distance, and we should probably be left clicking. When it comes to right clicks, you should versus left clicks, you should be left clicking anytime you're within range to be left clicking, and then right clicking if you're out of range. And then the only other time you're right clicking is to finish off targets for burst damage, right? When you're bursting someone's health down and they're right next to you. This can be done with a right click melee if they're close enough for the melee, and then this bursts their health down very fast, which means that you're going to stop them from getting heals, from being able to escape, from being able to use movement abilities and tanking abilities. So really here we just firing some right clicks when it's not really going to do anything. We should just be left clicking. Like here we should be left clicking, then we also right click again here when that didn't really do anything. It just just goes through and hits somebody random.
The other case in which you should like right click like would be like if there's like a bunch of squishies with no shield, right? Like if they're all like say they're like all like nobody specifically is low.
If they're like all in a grav or something, or they're like if you know that they're all grouped up, then if
Like
they're grouped up, then
CC,
sure. Then go ahead.
like CC, like Ryan Shatter. There's like both heels sitting in the back.
Yeah, if you're right clicking and it's doing damage to a bunch of people grouped up, then that's also fine. But at the same time, you might also want to be like if they're a little bit more spread out, you want to be singling one person down so that you can actually damage. If you're just firing right clicks, yes, it does a bunch of damage to everybody, but it does it at a slower spread out pace, which means that you're not actually securing kills. You're just getting them down HP, and the longer it takes you to get a kill, the more time they have to get healed, to get away, to escape you, to use tanking abilities, healing ability, whatever. They just have more time to escape you, whereas if you would beam them down, they might die faster. So the only time where you'd right click is if they're like you get a ton of splash damage value, right? Whereas if it's just like if they're a little bit spread out, then you probably wouldn't want to.
The only other, from what I've heard too, is like because like Zarya can still right click on one like ammo, right? Like I think at the end there was like close to one. That's for like the last right click at least. What was that?
I couldn't see that right. Guess we can rewind a little bit. Yeah, so we use it for like the last 20. I mean, yeah, I guess you can.
But mostly just if you're in range of lefts.
Yeah, most of the
Just
time.
track.
Notice again how we reload at 50, noticing that it's just a bad habit to be into. That's part of, that is going to be a tiny bit of a part of what I was talking about with like how it seems as though we shoot less than other people. Like we're not doing as like, we're kind of, it gets into actions per minute of how often are we doing things. And sometimes it's seeming like we're not doing things very often, and that partly that's going to be from like reload habit like that, and we'll see more as it comes up.
You hear that? Let's get you healed up.
You're covered.
Okay. Here probably should be bubbling Reinhardt once he gets in on top of them. We kind of hesitate with it. So like right here when Reinhardt's like right here on top of them, we should be bubbling him so he can go in and swing and do things. Though I think he backs up because we don't bubble him, and he gets or he backs up because he's trying to go for the Baptiste at the very least. And because we don't bubble him, look at all the health he just took. He lost like 300 HP because we didn't bubble him there. Just bubble him when you bubble people when they are going to take damage, right? That's how bubble works. You bubble them, that therefore stops them from taking damage. That's how the tanking comes into play. And then also that's how you get energy out of it. Here we want to be higher energy, and we also want to be getting value out of the bubble. On top of that, let's see, while we're looking for the bubble, we don't, okay, so we shoot and then we stop shooting, and then we have a little bit of just of pauses there when it comes to shooting. And then we also, who do we use bubble on? Do we use bubble on Ryan? Yeah, and then we bubble Reinhardt when he's just nowhere near anything now. So now nobody is looking at him, right? Besides Zarya, and
Yeah, I
he's
was
not
trying
in
to get the
range to do anything.
Lucio, that
Uh,
one,
where is
and then I just
Lucio?
wasn't
Oh, he's
through.
dead. Oh, he's dead. Okay.
He just died.
Right. So
I mean, I should have used it earlier, but
okay.
oh
Well, I
no.
mean,
Okay, never mind.
yeah.
You're covered.
And then also could have used our personal bubble here, right? And then now we've decayed down to 50.
Just a scratch. Barrier's on you.
Alright, so we're getting our players back soon. Sounds good. Alright, when we are high on energy, so that's going to be around like 70 plus, make sure from that point on that all of our bubbles are being used for pure tanking, right? Because we are so high on energy that really the difference between 70 to 100 isn't going to be a super major difference, and then therefore that means that you really want to use your bubbles for when that's actually needed. So here, for example, we use bubble just for tanking a little bit of spam damage, and then getting we use it to just get energy here, and then right immediately afterwards we get May ulted, and now we don't have bubble to escape the May ult, whereas we probably could have used the bubble to escape May ult had we just held on to it a couple of seconds longer, right? So we want to make sure once we're high up on energy that we are now saving it for when it's actually needed, and not wasting it. And then on top of that, we're also pushing a little bit too close here when we are at a disadvantage currently, or at least like when we're waiting on some players, like we're waiting for our Sim and our Reinhardt to come back, and we push forwards a little bit far here, whereas we might want to be keeping a little bit of a distance. Yeah, then we die. So just a little far forwards there.
Ready for battle. Go. Barrier activated.
Alright.
Teleporter online.
We move quickly. Ooh.
Right clicks within too close of a range.
Charging up. Огонь по готовности.
Right, so here, let's look through a little bit of this. So first off, do we have anything combo with it? We have a Bapple, but we don't have it yet.
Огонь по готовности.
We have to think, do we have our team here to follow up with it? Currently, we do not. So this is a part of being aware of our surroundings. This is awareness, making sure we're looking around us. Here, our team is not currently in range. Where that grab goes, our team cannot currently follow up to kill those people, right? Our Reinhardt, Doomfist and Reinhardt are both close range characters. They are not on top of them. Symmetra is a close range character. She is not on top of them. So essentially, keep in mind, we are a brawl composition, yet we're not inside our brawl range, and then therefore this grab isn't going to do anything, right? Now, you can go for grabs that are more centered towards you doing things, but only if you have energy. Here we're at 37 energy. Maybe let's say we had like 100 energy and we went for that grab. Well, now maybe we can kill the people in it by ourselves, but here we currently don't have enough energy to do so. On top of that, as soon as we get to the grab here, we don't see the Lucio here who's grabbed, and we look at the Zarya, so this is additional additional awareness where we shoot at the Zarya here, and then even after Lucio comes around the corner, we still shoot at the Zarya. So we just wanting to make sure we're shooting at the right targets there.
Maximum charge.
Let them up. I hate your attention.
Knocking them off.
Give me your best shot.
Alright, so last time, did we talk on target priority at all?
I don't think so.
Maybe not really. Okay, yeah. Reinhardt's it's a little bit different. So, when it comes to target priority is who should we be shooting at, right? Like what
Yeah.
characters? Um, for the most part, that's not tanks. Tanks aren't what we should be shooting at whenever we have the opportunity. So to go more in depth on that, tanks have 2 to 3 times the health of other characters. They have shields. They have armor. They have more tanking abilities as well. And on top of all that, even though they're a very important role and they can carry, their job is to create space. Whereas the job of a support is to output healing and DPS output damage. That means that they're the ones who output the statistics, and they're the ones we want to be killing because they get more statistical value. So that's not to say that we never shoot at tanks, because of course there's times where you should shoot at them. You shoot at them when they are low, when they're out of position, when they're the only thing to shoot at, right? So that's where Reinhardt comes into play a little bit. Reinhardt as a character, if you were playing Reinhardt, you can't really get onto their backline very easily, right? You have to walk through their tanks and their front line to get to them. You can't just immediately teleport to their backline. And you're also a very close range character. Now this changes a little bit towards a character like Zarya, who Zarya is not bound to the front line like Reinhardt is. Zarya can take off angles. So an off angle is something like this, where an off angle is just an angle that is not the main angle. This would be the main angle, where you can get around shields, get around tanks, and get straight to their backline, right? They're usually
Mhm.
very fast, very safe. Reinhardt can't go for off angles because Reinhardt is inherently, wherever Reinhardt is the main angle because he's the main tank, right?
Yeah.
Zarya can go for off angles because she's not the main tank. So Zarya can do something like this and immediately get to the Lucio. So you can already immediately see how going for other characters is much more applicable in Zarya. On top of this, Zarya also has much more range than Reinhardt has. She has 15 meters on her beam range, which is much further than Reinhardt's like 5 meters with his swing. And then on top of that, she also has the right clicks, which go even further. So, all that being said, Zarya can do a lot better to get to the other characters, whereas Reinhardt can't. So Reinhardt is bound by the you shoot at tanks if they're the only thing you can shoot at. Reinhardt is bound by that much more than Zarya is, yet most of our gameplay has been revolving around shooting tanks as of so far. So if we come back and look at this fight, we're also going to notice a little bit of us just swapping around targets a ton, and never really
Mhm.
focusing on one thing. That's another thing we're going to notice. So notice how we start off on the Zarya here, again, aka being on a tank over being on the Lucio, right? Here we have equal opportunity. We can go for Zarya and Lucio just as easily, and Zarya is going to be able to get healed much easier. She has a bubble. She has 2 times the health. Yet we shoot at Zarya over Lucio, right?
Mhm.
So here we go on the tank. We start off Zarya. Then we swap to the Reinhardt.
Maximum
Again, throwing
charge.
right clicks in when we probably shouldn't be. This is going to waste our ammo much faster, and its left click's just gonna be a lot more consistent during these fights. Now Lucio here is a little bit on the open. Maybe we can shoot at the Lucio here. Okay, so we shoot at the Zarya at the Mei instead, and then we swap to the Reinhardt, and then we throw in some right clicks, and we swap back to the Mei, and then we swap back to the Ryan, and then we go for the bubble, right? And then we swap back to the Ryan. So we're just swapping between a bunch of different things here,
Check out this gun.
right? We swap between a bunch of things there, and then most of our time there was spent shooting at Ryan and Zarya, and then even on a lesser scale, Mei, which if you like, it's not just tanks. There's also target priority even within other characters. Like who's easier
Mhm.
to kill, a Mei or Symmetra?
Yeah, Umi's Symmetra if she's
Symmetra.
not anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. So, there you even have a hierarchy even between the other characters, right? Like who's easier to kill, a Mei or maybe I guess never mind. The other three all equally have their own different sort of abilities, so it really depends on which one has
Like
used their abilities. Go ahead.
mhm. Like Reaper with cooldowns or McCree
Mhm.
without flash.
Exactly.
Like he has no mobility.
Yep. So we just want to have better target priority there, and we weren't really doing a ton. And most of our gameplay so far has just been us shooting at shields and tanks, and then therefore we haven't really accomplished very much. So I would very highly recommend taking off angles more often as well. I'll try to point out more off angles as I see them. And then besides that, just want to warn you about flanking. Flanking is not off angling. Flanking is when we
Mhm.
go and do a long wraparound. So flank would be like if just for example we went like all the way around over here. Flanks are long and or dangerous. you don't want it to be long, because the longer we take, the more time our team is, or basically that means our team could be losing during that time. And then we also don't want it to be super dangerous, because then we don't have any self-sustain on Zarya. We can't survive off on our own. So on a character
Mhm.
like Zarya, you're not going to be flanking very often, but you will be off-angling often.
Sure.
Barriers on you. Go. Don't go back.
Just in the course of like half a second, we swap between 3 different targets. Make sure I mentioned that last fight, but I didn't go in depth really on that. Make sure that we are standing on, as often as possible, we're sticking with one person, because if we put all of our damage across a bunch of different people, we're never going to kill anybody. We're just going to tickle them and then they're going to get healed, right? Whereas if we put it
Mhm.
all into one person, then we might be able to kill that person. We saw that a lot last fight, and then we're about to see it here in a second, where we go
Barriers on you.
Lucio,
Go.
Ryan, Zarya,
Maximum
right?
charge.
In respect,
Don't
right?
hold
In
back.
respective order, where we swap between all
Yeah.
3 of them in the course of half a second. Whereas if all that damage was in on one person, Lucio is currently 1 HP, Zarya is half HP. If all that damage is put on one person, well, now either of them is dead, right? Basically. So we want to make sure we're
Yeah.
paying attention to not shooting a bunch of random people. Right? On top of that, try to
Bring it.
steal the health pack before she can take it as well there.
Reality set.
Oh, unfortunate.
Just like
Yeah, this was the reset. I think.
Oh, this is the Arisa one? Okay, do you have another one? Do you want to
Yeah.
take over instead of this? Alright.
Triple kill. Systems operating at maximum
Leave that one, or even
Welcome to
have another one too if needed.
Ready for battle.
Alright. Let me take a look. So you're 6 here.
ready for back.
Oh, I skipped way too far forwards.
Defend objective A.
That's all
Yeah,
we've got.
I like that we poked for our charge. That's good. Though that would be a perfect opportunity to get a one-off on our Ryan there when he gets fire struck. Or you just pay attention to those, as we've had a bunch of different just bubbles. Lots of different instances where we just have these tiny little mess ups of bubbles. And
Barriers on
that's a
you.
good bubble though, right there. It's good timing. Very nice.
Allow me to repair that. Ready for battle. That's equals.
Nice bubble. Right, so there was like 3 out of 4 of them were good.
My will made
You know, it's not that they're terrible all the time, it's just inconsistent. Half the time they're good, half the time they're bad.
Mhm.
Get in there.
Enemy is here.
Repairing the damage. Here,
Okay, so here, this is where we get into some things, like right here. Bubbling Reinhardt's fine there, right, because we're down a little bit and the fight hasn't started
Get in
yet. But
there.
now,
Enemy is
here, us pushing forwards like this, the only reason why we'd want to do this is if we're going for a bubble, yet we're at 94 energy and we don't need a bubble at the moment. So we push forwards and then just unnecessarily take a bunch of damage when it probably wasn't needed.
Your best shot.
And then we do it again a little bit there.
Won't like it. This will restore you.
So there we just, oh, sorry, my bad. Stink, man. I keep accidentally touching that. So in any case here, we just had a couple instances where we pushed forwards aggressively when we probably could have just sat back if we weren't going to be using our bubble.
Barriers on you. Maximum charge. I will. I know you can do better than that. This will heal you. Bring it. This is just a scratch.
Oh, flesh.
Okay, very nice.
Get in there. That's more like it. Ready for battle. Maximum charge.
Okay, watch the spam jumping. I am noticing here that we're spam jumping quite a bit, where we're just going jump, 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 jump. I don't know if we talked about that last time, but that's just going to make it easier to headshot you, and it's not a very high priority thing, to be honest, but it's still a thing just to pay attention to, as especially when you're up at a higher rank. It's going to make it very easy for people to headshot you, and then therefore a lot easier to kill you, and it means that we probably don't want to be doing so. And then yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Barriers on you.
Okay, bubbles are actually looking a little bit more consistent here. Though we do back up really far when we probably could be helping out our Reinhardt here. Like, specifically, maybe we have a grab that we could be using to help our Ryan out. Yeah, we kind of back up here and leave him to die. And then we finally push back in there. So I think we just gave up on him a little early there. A lot of unnecessary reloads. So first off, we reload when we're at 49 HP. Still could be shooting, or not 49 ammo. Still could be shooting at Ryan. Then again, we are about to reload in a moment. Right after we get this kill here, we reload, and then this time he could be shooting at the Lucio. And then we also are about to reload here in a moment. 73 HP. HP. Sorry, why is my brain puzzled right now? 73 ammo, right, where we could be shooting at the Hanzo, right? So it's just a lot of unnecessary reloads. It's just wasting time where we could be shooting at people, right?
Okay.
Get in there.
36. Wait till it goes to 0, or you can't see anybody, right? You can reload all you want if we have to back up because we're low. If we can't see anybody, if there's, anytime there's a lull in time where there's nothing to do, we reload. But if we can just actively be shooting at people, there's no reason to be reloading, right? Okay, so now we push forwards a little far here. Probably don't want to be pushing forwards that far if you're not like pressing an advantage, right? They kind of backed up far enough. Yeah, we overstayed our welcome here, and then therefore we got slept, and then we lost a player. Probably could still be looking for a grab right about now. Yep, there you go. Though we slightly late on it, but we still get a big grab. Hanzo's a little delayed with that and a little far back, so that's unfortunate. Nice, they're all low in there. This is definitely winnable. There we can maybe go for a bubble on our Hanzo, but I think we're also trying to secure the kill there. Yeah. As you're walking back from spawn, you know the right-click jump tech you were talking about it before. That's just a very easy way to get back. It increases your movement speed as well as jump height. So whenever you walk back from spawn, you usually want to use it, and then your shield health will just regenerate naturally. So you can use it once or twice, and then once you start to get close, let your shield health regen.
Don't hold back. 60 seconds.
Alright. So there, we just went in way too far. So right here, I'm thinking to myself, right, I'm probably going to get more value out of getting energy and getting out than I will stalling out cart for like 2 seconds, right? Here you want to be getting energy, so I would just bubble the Hanzo in real quick, bubble him from here, let him get some energy for you, and then just back up and escape, right? Because there's no need feeding your health, your life, and then getting a bad spawn all the way over here. When you can just get out and with some energy, right? This is unnecessary, and then we push in really far, and then they push us, and then I imagine maybe we die here, and then yes, therefore we get a really bad respawn all over here, and then now we have to wait for, then our entire team has to wait for us, right? We're the last person, so we ended up staggering ourselves, and probably wasn't necessary that we do so. Right click to walk back from spawn faster. Instead of dropping immediately, probably stay up here for another half a second and bubble so we can just get some energy going. Instead of being at 0%, because that's just another easy energy opportunity there.
Barrier activated.
Keep shooting even while you're bubbling, right? Make sure we're just tossing in some right clicks.
Get in there, Bob.
Again, notice how we're thinking about the bubble, and then as soon as we start thinking about the bubble, we stop shooting, right? Shooting should just be coming off of default naturally just all the time. So here we're thinking, oh, Mercy might need bubbles, so we're thinking about the bubble, and then we just never shoot him until after he's like past her, right? So there we just want to keep shooting or keep shooting in the bubble like along with it, right?
An expedient solution. Get in there.
Surrender.
I'm on fire.
Nice coalescence.
Everyone
That's
follow.
great.
Barrier activated. Don't hold back.
There, I think we just got distracted by the diva, but we probably could have just stayed close to the edge, and then that would have gotten us more energy because we didn't need to turn around and walk to towards the diva to actually shoot at her, right?
Heroes never die.
Go. Ready for battle.
Right click melee the Reinhardt, and he's dead there, right? When you're right on top of somebody, you right click melee to finish them off. There we right click him and then we look away. Whereas here that would probably finish him. Then we also look away here and just let him die.
Charging lights up. Getting position. I'm even stronger.
Right click melee to finish off kills when they're right next to you. And then even when they're a little bit further away, just regular right click just bursts down targets, kills them faster.
Tactical visor activated.
Okay, good job getting away there.
Give me your best shot. Don't hold back. Don't be shy. Shoot me.
Okay, notice again target priority while we do have equal access to other things. So right here, when we have equal access to the McCree, we shoot at the Reinhardt. So Reinhardt, then we go to the McCree. Afterwards, then we're about to see it again in a second where we go back to Reinhardt when there's a Hanzo to our immediate right who we could be shooting at, who we don't seem to be noticing, so that's awareness. And then on top of that, he's also on our screen here, and we shoot at the Diva instead. And then there's still a Hanzo next to us, we just don't seem to be noticing him, so pay attention to your surroundings, awareness. And then we also go most of the fight without grab. So grab, we haven't talked a ton on grab yet, though there also are some things I'm noticing. So first off, make sure we're grabbing earlier in fights. Right? When you hold on to your ults, basically when you grab first, it gets more value inherently than when you grab second. So ults that are used first get more value than ults that are used second. As an easy comparison, let's say that they have a grab and we have a grab. If they grab first, right, they get a bunch of kills with it, and then that means if we grab second, then we won't have teammates to shoot into our grab and then capitalize on it, right? That's not every single scenario, but inherently most of the time ults that are used first get more value, and here we use our grab after they've used nano and after the fight's halfway done, right? Because by the time we use it, it's just, it's a 4v5, right? 3 kills are already gone. So we just want to make sure we're using it earlier in the fight, not like mid-fight where that's where we are right now. On top of that, we've also been holding on to it once in a while. Like I've noticed, like when we do get it, we hold on to it for like a fight before we use it. So maybe using it slightly more often as well. And then here we get one Ana in it, so maybe not super effective of a grab. So making sure we're paying attention to grabbing more people. And then again, we also grab when we're very low HP and we don't have teammates who can capitalize on it. So that wasn't a very effective grab because we, couple things. We were about to die. Teammates weren't near it, and then there's only one person, right?
Yeah.
Get in there, Get in there.
Heroes never die. Surrender to my will.
Give me your best shot. Schön.
Okay.
Bring it.
Use bubble when you're being swung on, not after you're being swung on. And we could also potentially bubble, or like if we're trying to get easy energy, we can also bubble into that dragon there potentially. So there Reinhardt swings on us twice, and that would have been a very good time to be bubbling, and because then we just could get easy energy. But then we don't, and then we don't get any energy out of it.
Barriers on you. Go. Огонь по готовности. Ready for battle.
That's a situation where you can right click into it. Though I would say as well, maybe add a melee too. That might be it cancels well into itself, so you're going to be able to fit it in basically in the same amount of time it takes you to just shoot right click. You can do right click melee. In pretty much the exact same amount of time, except for now you're doing extra damage along with it, and that can maybe kill the Lucio as well.
My will made real. Barrier activated. Get into position.
Right, Monkey got shredded there.
Maximum
Unfortunate.
Right.
Yeah, let's look at this. Look back at this fight. So our monkey doesn't give us, our team doesn't give us much time to prepare here. But let's think through this a little bit. Are we going to be able to really get very much value in terms of getting damage and kills from the front line here?
So I probably want to go up top.
Exactly, right.
It's free space.
Free space, right? Just go top left. From up here, you're able to take much better angles where you can get over shields and around shields. Very much easier, and also contest anybody up here instead of just sitting in the main angle where we're just stuck shooting at the shield the entire time in tanks, right? We just see a lot too much shielding, shooting at tanks and shields, and then it means that we don't really accomplish very much. Like we could go through this whole game and go shields, tanks, and just point out all the times we're shooting at shields and tanks. And it'll probably even out to around like 70% of all of our shooting. Like here, this is fine. This is a situation where when these guys are up in front, you do not have any other opportunity, anything else to shoot at. So this is where tanks are the only thing you can shoot at, right? But there are other situations where we have had where we could shoot at other things, right?
I think I could go right room.
Yeah, potentially there. Though that might be slightly longer.
In other scenarios.
Yeah. Yep. So I do like we take high ground here. That's good. Though make sure that you're hugging especially if you hear the Lucio coming up to you. We're expecting the boop, and we're hugging more left wall than right wall, or then right side. And then on top of that, yeah, that's pretty much it. So just make sure we're watching the boop. Okay, there we had a little bit of a big pause in between shooting. Anna's also sitting off in this right room, who we could be pushing. We know that she's there. This is an awareness thing. We know that she's there because she was shooting and we can hear her. So, and we also, I think, see her use some ability. So we see shots right there. You see the little purple stream that she shoots through. You also see her nade as well from that side, and we hear her over there. So we just want to make sure we're pushing her when we get easy. We know that she's there. If we're paying attention to our surroundings right now, we do see her there, just slightly delayed. Nice right click to finish her off. That's good.
Ready for battle. Maximum charge. Barriers on you.
Shoot. Keep shooting until you actually see the person. Or that this gets into actions per minute as well. So there's constant pauses and breaks in between. Anytime we're looking for a bubble, whereas there probably shouldn't be. Let's see how we used grab one last time. Then we'll hop into the wrap up. Okay. They ult first, they get value, we can't, and then that's the other part of it, is that when we don't ult, it forces us to hold on to it for another fight, because then we just end up losing before we get a chance to use our ult. So ulting first can win the fight before we're forced to hold on to it yet again. Okay. Notice again how tons of ults are happening by the time we're doing anything at all. So now this is going to be fight number 2 that we've done nothing with it, whereas there's a ton of other ults flying around the entire time. So it's fight number 2. Let's see. I'm just looking at ults here, and then we'll exit. So it's 2 fights. We're going to use it here, so we do use it here. Right, so but there was a 2 fight delay before we used it.
Barriers only. Go.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to skip that far back. My bad.
Barriers only. Go. Огонь по готовности.
On top of that, make sure we're being more ambitious with our grabs. We don't want to be just grabbing one person, but more. When we grab, we are not expecting other people to just group up into our grab, right? We grab when they are grouped up, not grabbing, expecting them to group up, right? So we want to watch for when they're all close to each other and then grabbing. Whereas here, they're all obviously not all close together. Otherwise, we would have gotten more people in there. So here, all of them are very spread out. So we might want to wait a couple more seconds until they are grouped up. So let's see. Is there at any moment during this fight, are they more grouped up than they are currently? Okay, well. Okay, well now
We
by the
just
time
press
stuff
Q.
happens, where they lose, but maybe you can just get 2 people on Reinhardt and Lucio, or earlier in the fight even, right? Up when they were up on the high ground, I believe they were all grouped up, right? So here we have, let's see, we can combo. We don't really have anything combo with, so we actually wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
capitalize if we went high ground. But let's say maybe some of the squishies. Let's see, I'm trying to think. So yeah, they all got spread out, so really wasn't a ton we could have done. Maybe make sure we're aiming.
I forgot.
Here there were 2 people grouped up. We probably could have actually gotten both of them, but look at where
That's what I
we
was
aim it.
trying for.
Yeah, so look at where we aim it, and we
Огонь
just
по
do it.
готовности.
First off, is a little bit delayed to where now they spread out more, and then it also is just a little bit too close towards us. So just not aimed properly to actually get both of them. Now let's leave the game. Training range, real quick. We'll just go over shooting while still bubbling, right? We'll just go over that real quick, and then we'll do the wrap up and
Together,
review and
we are
whatnot.
strong.
Okay, so coming down here, so we can continue to do stuff while bubbling, right? We can continue to right click, just right click, or we can continue to left click, and then we can swap over to the side real quick. What we're not going to do is we're not going to pause and then move to the side. Instead, we can walk in front of them, so we can just bubble super easily, or we can even, if we know that somebody over there needs healing, we can just do a really fast bubble, right, where we move to the side really fast, and then we're immediately back to shooting. So you just want to make sure that when we're bubbling, we're not taking long pauses, right? Moving on, main points of the session, and on top of that, just quick review. Number 1 main point, let's see, because we actually never did strengths and weaknesses, so I'm trying to think what was the main point of the session. Thinking. Everything was very even-ish. I don't think it was positioning. Positioning definitely wasn't it. We didn't really talk on positioning at all. So positioning was was at the bottom. We'll say positioning's number 5. Just trying to think. What was number 1? Honestly, everything was fairly even in where it was. But let's say bubbles was number 1, just because we talked on that a lot. Just getting better bubbles in. So make sure we're getting better bubbles. Make sure we're bubbling when we know people are going to be looking at us. Make sure we're bubbling early in fights. We're not holding on to it. And then make sure that there's a lot of odds and ends bubbles. Make sure not bubbling when there's nobody looking at the person. Not bubbling the wrong people. Try to get your energy up higher, because that's when we do a whole lot more. Bubble in between fights so we can maintain our energy. Right, and then don't bubble when you're at a high energy. Don't bubble for just energy when you're already at a high energy. Wait, save it for tanking. Whenever possible, try to get tanking value out of your bubbles, and then that will both give you tanking and energy out of both of them. Think like someone gets charged on your team, you bubble, you save their life, you get value. Right, you get bubble, you get energy, and you save their life. So look for stuff like that. Besides that, I'd say number 2 is probably going to be your awareness, as there were just a lot of times where there's stuff happening when we weren't paying attention. So pay attention to your ult charge so we're not holding on to it for too long. Pay attention to where's the enemy team, where's my team at. Pay attention to how team compositions dictate your play style, and pay attention as well to the rest of things. Actually, you know what? I'm trying to think through this here. Because these are all so close. Now that I'm thinking it through, I wasn't thinking of all the things that went into mechanics. Mechanics takes the number 1 slot. So mechanics goes number 1, bubbles number 2, then we'll do the awareness is number 3. Mechanics, there's actually a lot of stuff I just forgot about. So first off, you have left click versus right click. Make sure you're using left click whenever you can, right click when you can't, and then when to burst somebody down, you are going to right click melee, and then that will burst someone down really fast to secure the kill. Make sure that you are doing things. Don't take random breaks and pauses. That's actions per minute. Make sure we're not reloading unnecessarily when we could be shooting at things. Instead, just waste all, go down all your ammo. Or if we need to, if we can't see anybody for any reason, then we can reload as well. So anytime we have a lull in time. Also, target priority. Make sure we have a good target priority and we're aiming, and we're shooting at the things that we should be shooting at, i.e. supports and DPS and the easiest ones to kill, not the hardest tanks, and trying to shoot at tanks and shields, try to get around them, and then that gets into a little bit of positioning we'll go over at the end. So finally, that was number 1, right? Then, sorry, so we're going really out of order here. So number 1 is mechanics, number 2 is bubbles, number 3 is awareness, number 4 is ultimate usage. Make sure being more ambitious, not just getting one person in it. Wait till they group up, try to aim it a little bit better, make sure we're not holding on to it and using it, more often, and not holding on to it for 2 fights in a row. And then also use it earlier in fights, right? And so that we're not forced to hold on to it, and just ults get more value earlier in fights. And then finally, last one is positioning. Just make sure we're not that we are taking off angles more often, and that we are not taking flanks, right? And that's pretty much it in positioning. Do you have any questions about anything that we've talked about?
I know. I think I asked most of the questions that I had during it, so
All right,
I think it was
man.
pretty much answered.
Sounds good.